Hello, everyone. How is everyone doing today? Like you mentioned, morning are difficult for me, so hopefully I'll be able to think today. All right, so this is like the first stream of having all combined React, Dart, and Surreal. We already started the habit tracker app, right? Just in case somebody's interested, there's a repo, like down in the description. I'll be updated as we go the live streams. So, yeah, yesterday we kind of set up the server code, and today I guess we can start connecting things. Uh, See, what is a good way from React to call the server. I mean, initially not good, just let's just try it, and yeah, let's see what happens, right? So when we look at the code, we have our backend, right? Right now, it pretends to have something related to, we have a route that just gets us to, it's supposed to return habits, right? It doesn't have any data about the history or whatnot, just empty stuff for now. But it's returning hard-coded habits, some database stuff that doesn't really matter at this moment. But yeah, so let's just comment that out. Guess I need to make it a little bit larger. And what we can do here, we can just start frog dev. Oops, wrong shortcuts. There's so many shortcuts when it comes to. Oh, that doesn't work here, huh? When it comes to Linux. I don't know, Papa Spaghiamo? What the heck? We have it here. Oh, it's inside lib. Wait. I'm in the front end. Oh, I'm in the front end. Backend. There we go. Now our backend should be working, so we should be able to try again. And we have our internal server error on habit. What? Okay, let's just fix stuff quickly because there was a problem with the database. Oh, authentication again. Oh, of course, because I removed the authentication details. So let's just try to fix that. Can I like undo here? Of course not. Ay, ay, ay. We'll just create a new password. Let me generate something. There we go. So let's just throw in a password like this. And the username is habit local. All right. Let's restart that. And when we refresh, we're good. We're not really doing anything with database yet. This data is not coming from there. But at least we have the server running. And that's a start, in my opinion. So now let's maybe open another code, and we'll open purely frontend. And we'll try to start that thing up. Because that's our React project. So npm run dev. There we go. And if we try to open it up, it should work. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have it here. A new tab, we're gonna open it up. There we go. And let's do this magical thing with, there we go. I want it kind of like a app screen, so we're gonna have it small, and I guess it's gonna be fine. I mean, in theory, we could have it on a side here. But I don't know. We'll see. We will see how it goes. All right. So currently in our front end, all those, stream every day, work on some side project, all that stuff, that's just hard coded in our React app. So now let's figure out how to actually get it from the server. The initial thing that comes to my mind is we should just grab something like Axios and throw it in our React and try to do something with that. Let's just find somewhere where we could use that information. Because right now, well, we'll get on our main page. We hold our habits where? Where do we hard code them? Habits, data from server, habits map. Oh yeah, that's it. This is our data from server. Hard coded and available instantly. The thing is that if we're gonna make like a request here, I don't think our React will react to the fact that the data changed, right? We need some kind of something that observes it. And we already kind of did something like that, wasn't it? In our habit dialog, right? Use effect. So let's ask AI because we can search docs or we can kind of get quick direction on what to do. So how would we describe it? I have an React app or the web app. I need to connect to the backend and fetch data. How can I make my React app react to when the data is received / updated? I'm looking for an idiomatic approach in modern React. I'm not using any frameworks around it. That's the important case. Okay, so for modern React data fetching interactivity, here are some idiomatic approaches. Custom hook with use effect and state. Okay, so in this case, we have use state and use effect. We just make our interface for use API data result, right? It will be our data, maybe it's loading, some kind of error possibly, and a function to refetch. Okay, so a little object that we can just operate our data with. So that's fine. And then we have our use API data that returns it from that URL. Okay, so we kind of make our own little little fetcher here. Okay, so it looks like we can use the state, call the use state basically outside of a component. Really? Use fetch, return that. Oh, I guess we can do that as long as we call the use API data within our component, right? Because then everything, like including the use state, will happen in that node. That makes sense. So we have our one for data, for loading, and for error. Okay, that's fine. We have our fetch data, hey, we need to set up loading, start fetching, all that fun stuff. Well, this actually looks like usable code. And then we have the use effect, the fetch data, right? And it observes the URL. I guess that's what it means, right? That it observes the URL. So the moment the URL changes, it calls fetch data. Okay. Great. But that just happens once. So I'm a little bit confused. This doesn't change anywhere. Because when we use it, we provide URL once. And what do we do with it? Absolutely nothing. The only place we use the URL is within the fetch. We're not changing it. So this is kind of confusing. And then we have usage. No, exactly. Use our API. We want to fetch it from here. Bam. And that's it. Unless this use effect, unless this works in a way that when I change it here, you know, like from, I don't know, the whole user ID changed, right? Because I switched a user, or maybe we need to change something. Use effect kind of persists over re-renders. So every time we are calling it again, oh yeah, because we already have the state, right? This is all stable. This happens between renders. Whenever we call use state, we're kind of getting the same thing. Okay. Interesting. How does React kind of realize which one represents what between re-renders, right? That's a good question, but right now let's assume that this happened, like, you know, this is like consistent between re-renders, and therefore when this changes, it will refetch that automatically. Okay, that's great. Loading and all that stuff. And okay, and because this is state and comes from a hook, right? Whenever something like loading finishes and changes from true to false, it will force re-render and therefore, you know, use the new data, or even if data changes, right? Okay, so that would be actually simple. Okay. All right. So that's an option with the views effect and custom hook. But then we have option of React query tan stack. Whatever, React query / tan stack query. For production apps, React query is the gold standard. Okay, so this is basically package React query. Oh, and we just have the whole thing built for us, right? We import query client provider, bam, and we just have our query client. I guess we reuse it throughout the life of the app. Possibly give it a URL or something. I don't know. And oh, and it's a component. Query client provider. It will just hold that data automatically, and we can probably pass it down to wherever we have to, right? So our, oh, this probably holds everything, right? So in our actual, wherever we're using it, like this is like the main TSX, we just register it that it exists and throughout the life of the app. And we have some component that actually wraps the whole thing. Interesting. So then inside our whatever component, however deep it is, we have the use query hook. And then we can just say async function fetch user. Okay. So we're still doing our own fetch. Okay. And guess that fetch will be called by in our component use user. Oh no, we're still making our own use user, huh? So that's not a component yet. A query key, query function, which is this part. Stale time after 5 minutes. Okay, it's gonna refetch. Why does it seem like even more work? We can provide user ID, and then within our component, finally. No, this is still not even touching a component. We would need to use that within a component. Oh dear. guess the gold standard, but seems overcomplicated. Like the functionality is spread out. I mean, this is functionality for the specific user, and I guess we just make our specific hooks. Huh. They have real-time updates with WebSockets. Nope, we're not doing that. Not server-sent events. So we're deciding basically between the tests, React/test stack query, and the use effect, which I guess is a little bit more code if we were to do it. No, because this is generic. This is for any kind of data, right? This is for any kind of data that we could have anywhere, and we can react to our loading and refetch. And what about here? We do use user, and in return we get the use query, which will do what? Give us the data, I guess. Maybe it will give us something similar where we have this. So let's actually research those two approaches. First of all, I want to just read on use query, use effect, what this thing even is, and how to properly use it. React use effect. Oh. Oh, somehow I saved your ears from my sneezing. Sorry about that. Ooh. What was I doing? React use effect. So we have official docs for 19. So use effect is a React hook that lets you synchronize a component with external system. Okay. It's a very broad thing. Synchronize a component of external system. So that links somewhere else. Okay, synchronizing with effects. Oh, so this is like API, like a reference API docs. While this is more of a learn React thing. So synchronizing with effects. Some components need to synchronize with external systems. For example, you might want to control a non-React component based on the React state. Set up a server connection or send analytics log when a component appears on screen. Okay. Effects let you run some code after rendering so that you can synchronize your component with some system outside of React. So what are effects and how are they different from events? So before getting into effects, you need to be familiar with two types of logic inside of React component. Rendering code, introduced in describing the UI, lives at the top level of your component. This is where you take the props and state, transform them, and return the JSX you want to see on a screen. Rendering code must be pure. Like math formula, it should only calculate the result, but not do anything else. Exactly. The bare minimum to display what it's supposed to be displayed. Then we have event handlers, introduced in adding interactivity. Our nested functions inside our components that do things rather than just calculate them. Yeah, that happens like separate from rendering. We're just saying, hey, this thing uses this event, it can do something. An event handler might update an input field, submit an HTTP post request to buy a product, or navigate the user to another screen. Event handlers contain side effects. They change the program state caused by a specific user action. For example, a button click or tapping. Sometimes this isn't enough. Consider a chat room component that must connect to the chat server whenever it's visible on the screen. Connecting to a server is not pure calculation. It's a side effect, so it can't happen during rendering. However, there is no single particular event like a click that causes chatroom to be displayed. Effects let you specify side effects that are caused by rendering itself. Oh, so literally it's just triggered by rendering. Okay. rather than by a particular event. So in our case, it will be like, hey, we just loaded a page. We need to start the request or something. Sending a message in a chat is an event because it is directly caused by the user clicking a specific button. However, setting up a server connection is an effect because it should happen no matter which interaction caused the component to appear. Effects run at the end of a commit after the screen updates. This is a good time to synchronize the React component with some external system like network or third-party library. Note here and later in this text capitalized effect refers to React specific definition above. For example, a side effect caused by rendering. To refer to the broader programming concept, we'll say side effect. Okay. So you might not need an effect. Don't rush to add effects to your components. Keep in mind that effects are typically used to step out of your React code and synchronize with some external system. This includes browser APIs, third-party widgets, network, and so on. If your effect only adjusts some state based on the state, you might not need an effect. Yeah. I mean, in our case, we want to reach out to the server whenever we load a page and just get it, and then we render whenever we, click refresh. So we kind of don't need it. Interesting. How to write an effect? To write an effect, follow these steps. Declare an effect. By default, your effect will run every commit. Okay, so it runs every commit, like after every re-render. Specify the effect dependencies. Most effects should only rerun when needed rather than every render. For example, a fade-in animation should only trigger when a component appears. Connecting and disconnecting to a chat room should only happen when the component appears and disappears, or when the chat room changes. You will learn how to control this by specifying dependencies. So, okay, this sounds familiar. Add cleanup if needed. Some effects need to specify how to stop, undo, or clean whatever they were doing. For example, connect needs disconnect, subscribe needs unsubscribe, and fetch needs either cancel or ignore. You will learn how to do this by returning a cleanup function. Interesting. So far this use effect sounds, I know that they're painting it as something totally external. But so far, from the usage that we saw, it's a little bit like watch or watcher in Vue.js, where you can just watch some state and react to its changes. Like, purely side effects. It doesn't need to calculate anything. Okay, so let's look at each of the steps in detail. So declare an effect. Wow, this is a long page. Holy moly. To declare an effect in your component, import a useEffect hook. Okay. Then call it at the top level of your component and put some code inside your effect. Yeah, we just call it inside of our stuff, right? And this is like the function here inside of it that we are calling as the effect. Every time your component renders, React will update the screen and then run the code inside useEffect. In other words, useEffect delays a piece of code from running until that render is reflected on the screen. Okay, so if we would put a console log, so let's actually try it. Let's go to our frontend code. We don't need that right now. Let's go to our main page. Okay, we're gonna say that we want to use effect. Okay. And in our main page, somewhere in the beginning, before we even define habits or whatever, we're just gonna do whatever temporary, okay? Constant. No, we don't even do constant, right? Where it is. We just call use effect. Okay. So we do use effect. Nothing is an input, just a thing here. So let's do console log. called from use effect. Okay, and that's it. While at the same time, let's say after that, we can put another console log that will actually run during the render, right? So it'll be console log rendering. If I'm gonna save it, I want to see what happens. So maybe it would be better if we actually break those down. Again, how do I break those down? Close tab, change tabs, close multiple tabs. Duplicate, unload, pin, mute, reload. Where's split? Split tab, multiple selected tabs needed. Don't I have that? Come on, this should go down here. Wow, I need to drag it. So instead of having this here, let's have this here, and we'll, wow, so many screens. We'll run another, oh, not this one. This one. And we're gonna run it separately here so that we can have our dev tools to the right. Dev tools need to zoom in, and this way we'll see the logs, right? So we just loaded the page and we already have rendering here, bunch of complaints. The env connected is open changed, and then called from use effect. Called from use effect. Okay, so I guess those changes were happening, like didn't cause re-render of the entire thing. I'll click add habit. Okay, we re-rendered the whole thing. We close it, re-render the whole thing. But it looks like every time the called from use effect happens after everything that we rendered. So yeah. And hello Mohammed, and hello Gaku-san. How difficult it is to learn React.js? So far it seems like more difficult than vue.js. Because I don't know. I mean, I probably because I did vue.js stuff a lot, and React not a lot. But yeah, it's a little bit confusing. It's like overcomplicated in my opinion so far. So I'm just in the beginning, so I can't tell you how much I know of it yet. So every time your component renders, React will update the screen and then run the code inside use effect. So it delays the code. Yep. Let's see how you can use an effect to synchronize with an external system. Consider a video player React component. It would be nice to control whether it's playing or paused by passing an isPlaying prop to it, right? So we have video player and we just pass isPlaying. Your custom video player component renders the built-in browser video tag. Okay, we just shove that one in and that's it. And wow, we have video. However, the browser video tag does not have an isPlaying prop. The only way to control it is to manually call the play and pause methods on the DOM element. You need to synchronize the value of isPlaying prop, which tells whether the video should currently be playing, with calls like play and pause. Okay. So I can already tell that what we'll be doing here within our video player, we'll be listening to changes of isPlaying, like, oh, did the prop change? And then we'll use the use effect to, first wait until we actually render everything and then call the, reference to the video component to say, hey, stop playing, right? Or hey, start playing. So the whole idea here, because they're taunting now, oh, this is to synchronize with external systems. I guess initially one wouldn't call like, oh, the video tag is that I'm rendering inside my React component is not an external system. But I guess it is because you don't necessarily want to call play, pause, during your render, you want to do it after, right? After you already have that video component in place. So that kind of is an external system. Okay. So we'll need to first get a reference to the video DOM node. You might be tempted to try to call play or pause during rendering, but that isn't correct. Exactly, it will tell us can't access property pause because current reference is null, because I guess, calling these while rendering isn't allowed because might not exist yet, the component itself. Yeah, if it's playing, run, else not. Exactly, this is bad. But we have user reference and we slapped it onto the video player inside of it somewhere. Reference. Where do we set reference here? Oh, this is app. This is separate here. Here, it's the reference. Okay. SCPN is asking how is learning React coming along? Well, it was a break. I haven't touched it ever last React live stream, so slowly but we're learning about use effect. And it just, again, kind of overcomplicate how they try to explain it. I guess. I don't know. It's just the fact that you need to focus so much on what is happening during rendering, what is not happening during rendering. It's just confusing. Like, shouldn't be that difficult. All right, so we went through that. The reason this code isn't correct is that it tries to do something with the DOM node during rendering. But the reference that we have, it's not to existing thing yet, right? In React, rendering should be a pure calculation of JSX and should not contain side effects like modifying the DOM, right? Because we're trying to paint it and change it at the same time. It just doesn't make sense. Moreover, when video player is called for the first time, its DOM does not exist yet, right? Because when this is happening, when we're rendering something in React, first, what is happening, we create like a virtual version of it, which doesn't exist in the browser yet. It's just in our JavaScript. And then after we kind of are towards the end of rendering, after we already run our code for a component, only then React actually goes in and sees like, oh, it looks like I need to add this and not because it's missing from the browser, and it just goes and updates, right? So I guess that's the key point here. There might be chances where you're trying to call play on a video player while it doesn't exist yet. And CPN says, I still think React makes front-end developer more complicated. Yes and no. It really depends on what you're doing. If you have a small app that doesn't need to do any magic, then yes, probably an overkill. But for larger websites, it really simplifies it to an extent. As long as you're familiar with it already, you put in an effort and your job is to work on it every day, then it's gonna speed it up because you can, actually do stuff, make it react, make it do magical stuff. And just the fact that you have components, that's a mega awesome thing. All right. So what the hell are we doing? Okay. It could not exist yet. The solution here is to wrap the side effect with use effect to move it out of the rendering calculation. Exactly. So we move the is playing. If it's playing, play. If it's not, pause, right? We move that into the use effect. But what I see now is that every time the thing re-renders, we'll call either play or pause, which might be a little bit unnecessary, right? To happen every time, even though the state of this playing hasn't changed yet. By wrapping the DOM update with an effect, you let React update the screen first, then your effect runs. When your video player component renders, either the first time or if it re-renders, a few things will happen. First, React will update the screen, ensuring the video tag is in the DOM with the right props. Then React will use your effect. Excuse me. Finally, your effect will call play or pause depending on the value of is playing. So press play, pause multiple times and see how the video player stays synchronized with the is playing value. Yeah, exactly. So we have this, which has the thing, pause, play, pause. No problem. So this is our video player, while our app has the button play, or maybe we'll call it not play, right? See, updated, so it's real code. It just sets the state, right? Great. In this example, the external system is synchronized to React state was the browser media API. You can use a similar approach to wrap legacy non-React code, like jQuery plugins, into declarative React components. Yep. Note that controlling a video player is much more complex in practice. Calling play may fail, the user might play or pause using a built-in browser controls, and so on. This example is very simplified and incomplete, of course. So pitfall, by default effects run after every render. This is why code like this will produce an infinite loop. Exactly, so we have use effect. So basically after our rendering, we are increasing the set count. And because we are changing the state, that will cause it to re-render and call another set count. So it will just be constantly re-rendering forever. And might just slow your app like crazy. Effects run as a result of rendering. Setting state triggers rendering, exactly. Setting state immediately in an effect is like plugging a power outlet into itself. The effect runs, it sets the state, which causes re-render, which causes the effect to run, it sets the state again, this causes another re-render, and so on. Effects should usually synchronize your component with an external system. If there's no external system and you only want to adjust some state based on other state, you might not need an effect. Exactly. CPN says, I'm gonna make a big web app just to prove my point. Go ahead. I mean, sure, you can do it. No problem. Web apps were made in some specific way at some point, right? But the whole idea of something like React, I'm not saying React is great because so far I don't enjoy it. But, you have simpler solutions by now, vue.js, Svelte, or whatever. The whole idea is that you have those components that you can just define in a very similar fashion. So you have like common syntax for them. So your entire team can each person can work on each component without thinking how the whole system will behave. Because there are, you have this pattern established throughout the code base. And you do specific things in specific ways. So the fact that you have components that are, reusable here and there, they can change the state from here and there, and it kind of manages for you, keeps everything synchronized. That's the whole point of something like React. And Sven says, yeah, working with a team will be a bit challenging. Yeah. The moment you have more than one person, or like, let's say more than 4 people, you really want to have some kind of patterns where you want to minimize situation where you have to say, you know what, I did it this way. You want more and more of situation where somebody comes in, and because everything is kind of forced to make familiar, they can, look at the code, it's like, okay, I kind of know what's going on, and they don't have to spend too much time, because often you can't guarantee that you'll be the one always working on this feature. It might be like, oh, you went on vacation for 2 weeks, right? And for 2 weeks, somebody else needs to work with it. Or maybe 3 different people will be working on it. That kind of thing. So the moment you introduce patterns and conventions, that entire team, spends their first month at work learning, and then can reuse it throughout the rest of their work there. That's where you actually speed up and can cooperate. All right, so great. We learn about the dangers a little bit. Specify the effect dependencies. There we go. By default, effects run after every render. Often it's not what you want. Sometimes it's slow. Synchronizing with an external system is not always instant, so you might want to skip doing it unless it's necessary. For example, you don't want to reconnect to the chat server on every keystroke. Exactly. Sometimes it's wrong. For example, you don't want to trigger component fade-in animation on every keystroke. The animation should only play once when the component appears for the first time. To demonstrate the issue, here is the previous example with a few console log calls and a call input and a text input that updates the parent component's state. Notice how typing causes the effect to rerun. Okay, so we just start typing, and I'm just typing, and I already had, 58 re-renders, let's call it, right? The whole thing was re-rendered 58 times, which is crazy. I mean, React will try to actually update only this element, but behind the scenes, we run this entire code, including figuring out how to render JSX many times. CPN says, I'll do things my way and no one will like it. I mean, sometimes it works, but that's not what good developers do. Yeah, on your side projects, you can do things the way you want. At work, you have to conform and do things the boring way, often the old way. By the way, CPN, I'm considering learning some Zig on some other live stream series. Because I'm split. Should I learn C or should I learn Zig? Because I want something that will really teach me well all the low level memory management and all the weird issues things like C would. But when I looked at C, it's like, this is overcomplicated. All right. So what the hell were we doing here? Okay, so we were changing this, putting a text field, and it causes the whole thing re-render. Therefore, every time we press a key, somehow we are sending the event to here to not play. Now, every time we send a keystroke, we are sending play to the web player, which is like, seriously? Exactly. You can tell React to skip unnecessary rerunning the effect by specifying an array of dependencies as the second argument to use effect call. Start by adding an empty array to the above example on line 14. Okay, so if we're gonna specify an empty array, this causes an error. React hook use effect has a missing dependency. Is playing. Either include it or remove the dependency array. Oh, now it became smart? It wasn't smart before, now it is smart? The problem is that the code insider effect depends on the isPlaying prop to decide what to do, but this dependency was not explicitly declared. To fix the issue, add isPlaying to the dependency array. Okay, isPlaying, right? Or whatever. Is playing. And now it rendered, right? We had an error, but okay, we're back here. Or maybe top is yeah, I guess top is where things show up. So now call video pause, play, pause, right? Let's ignore the errors. Now when I start typing, notice that we're not getting any thing anymore because the is playing isn't changing when I'm typing. Therefore, we are not rerunning it. CPN says both Zig and C are fine. You'll have a better time with Zig. That's why I'm considering Zig, because I know that I will have better time and it's a better compiler in the first place. And in theory, I can work with all the C anyway. I'm actually looking at that from the perspective of like, oh, maybe when I learn Zig, I learned enough of the low-level stuff. So all the weird quirks inside NIM language will suddenly become a little bit more understandable. And because they will become more understandable, I will have less issues with writing NIM, because NIM has just such nice features that I want to write more of it and don't want to be so frustrated with it. Yeah. So I was all thinking like, okay, if I'm going to learn Zig, what kind of project should I write? And right now I'm thinking maybe I'll go crazy and write a like SQL compliant in-memory database, something like that. Something that will force me to really go into the memory management stuff. We'll see. But I'm open to ideas. Okay, so we did that. So we added the dependency that is playing, right? Now all dependencies are declared, so there is no error. Specifying is playing as the dependency array tells React that it should skip rerunning your effect if is playing is the same as it was during the previous render. With this change, typing into the input doesn't cause the effect to rerun, but pressing play pause does. There we go. But what if I have whatever is whatever, right? And I'll just say past that, we have some kind of state like is whatever. Come on. Oh, shortcuts don't work, of course. And we'll make a set is whatever. Okay, so we added another thing. And we will actually magically just throw it in here, is whatever. Okay, we passed in that extra prop. And we'll just say that if is whatever, and just console log. Whatever. So notice that this is already complaining that, hey, I should be watching is whatever. But what if I don't want to rerun this code whenever is whatever changes? What if I don't care? I just want to read it. I don't want to depend on its observe its changes. I want to read it. Therefore, I don't want it in my dependencies. I want to run this code only when displaying changes. Why is it trying to force me to add dependency is whatever? I can't do that? That's stupid. I need to do is whatever. And only now it's happy. But that causes that whenever I change is whatever, I'm gonna re-render it. And I don't want to do that. Come on. That's stupid. Ay, ay, ay. Spian says, I don't know much about your knowledge. Pick your pace. I'm still a beginner when it comes to high performance software. Yeah, I'm not even thinking about let's make the SQL compliant thing high performance. Let's just make it kind of work. I know it's a complex approach, especially parsing SQL and some other stuff, but it could be an interesting challenge as long as I wouldn't need to deal with millions of types of strings like C does, it would be, I guess, relatively okay. It would learn something, definitely. And yeah, this thing with use effect is weird. I actually want to throw it into chat and see what it tells us. I have the following React code inside a component. And let's just throw it in here. Right? We have this thing. React is forcing me to specify is whatever prop as the dependency for use effect. The thing is, I don't want to run the effect whenever is whatever changes. I only want to run it when is playing changes. How do I approach it? React sucks. It looks like it throws an error, but that might be just a linter, right? So you have several options to handle this ESLint warning. Okay, so it's probably here is configured to be an error, but it might be just warning. So remove the dependency and disable ESLint. Yes, please, right? So that's one of the things. You use ESLint to enforce rules so everyone in your team writes roughly the same code and doesn't do unexpected weird stuff. So where were we? Missing dependency. We did that. So where's our is whatever? There we go. So if I'm gonna do this, I can just throw in that. And now it's happy. Option 2, use ref for stable reference. Recommended. So is whatever ref is whatever reference, and every time we render, we update it. And oh, I guess whenever it's a reference, it won't be forcing us. It's if we use props, then is or like state, then it's gonna be like, hey, to do this. If it's not state, if it's just a reference or whatever, that means it doesn't. Huh. And it has split the logic. Clean architecture. So you have separate effect for this, separate effect for that. Not my case. Oh. Wait. Yeah. But this is even worse. No logic outside effect. Nope. Yeah, so they're recommending use ref. Yeah, of course, don't do that. It's just that reference, I guess, some kind of hack for it. I don't like it. It just seems weird. Spin says, does it throw, by the way, there isn't much data set for AI to be good at Zig. I don't care about that. I don't need AI for stuff. I just like to ask questions instead of spending 10 minutes searching. Yeah, you're thinking that option 1 is the best. In my opinion, is the worst because by any cost you want to avoid disabling your rules here and there because that kind of misses the point of those rules being there. You want something that is a bit more explicit, and yeah, this sounds like an okay thing. SVN says ZigDocs is really good. Okay, that's good. That's good to hear. So now all dependencies are declared. We did this one. Yes. The dependency array can contain multiple dependencies. React will only skip rerunning the effect if all of the dependencies you specify have exactly the same values as they had during the previous render. React compares the dependency values using the object is comparison. See the use effect reference for details. Notice that you can't choose your dependencies. You will get a lint error if the dependencies you specified don't match what React expects based on the code inside your effect. This helps catch many bugs in your code. If you don't want some code to rerun, edit the effect code itself to not need that dependency. Yeah, I guess that's how you do it, to use ref or whatever. Pitfall. The behaviors without the dependency array and with an empty dependency array are different. So if we don't have array, this runs after every render, right? Because we don't have any dependencies, it just assumes every time. If we have empty array, this runs only on mount when the component appears. So it will be, run once. Okay, that makes sense. Just run once, otherwise there are no dependencies. Therefore, it will never ever run again. And this will runs on mount and also if either A or B have changed since the last render. Okay, so I guess it runs on mount because, for the first time, there was nothing and now there is something. Even if it's an empty array of dependencies. But yeah, that makes sense. And then inside the use effect, you could add additional like, if this has default value, don't do something or whatnot. We'll take a close look at mount, what mount means in the next step. Okay. And then we have last one, add cleanup if needed. Consider a different example. You're writing a chat room component that needs to connect to the chat server when it appears. You're given a create connection API that returns an object with connect and disconnect methods. How do you keep the component connected while it is displayed to the user? Start by writing the effect logic. So use effect, constant connection is create connection, and connect. It would be slow to connect to the chat every re-render, so you added the dependency array, right? So do it only once when when the thing mounts. The code inside the effect does not use any props or state, so your dependency array is empty. This tells React to only run this code when the component mounts. For example, it appears on the screen for the first time. Let's try running this code. So we have this connection connects, right? So we connected twice already. This effect only runs on mount, so you might expect connecting to be printed once in the console. However, if you check the console, connecting gets printed twice. Why does it happen? Imagine the chat room component is a part of a larger app with many different screens. The user starts their journey on the chat room page. The component mounts and calls connection connect. Then imagine the user navigates to another screen, for example, to the settings page, the chat room component unmounts. Finally, the user clicks back in the chat room, mounts again. This would set up a second connection. But the first connection was never destroyed. As the user navigates across the app, the connections would keep piling up. While this doesn't explain why we have it twice, we have chat. The chat itself returns connect. A real implementation would actually connect. Oh, no. So this is just a create connection, right? This is what we're calling here. Reset. I already have two. Why? Why do we get two already? Is it because we have that thing that mounts the component twice? Like for development purposes? Weird. So bugs like this are easy to miss without extensive manual testing. To help you spot them quickly in development, React remounts every component once immediately after its initial mount. Okay, so that's what it is. Somebody told me that in chat before, so that was very helpful. Thank you for that. Seeing the connecting log twice helps you notice the real issue. Your code doesn't close the connection when the component unmounts. To fix the issue, return a cleanup function from your effect. So use effect, connection, blah, blah, blah. Oh, and then we literally return something, right? In this case, a function we need to return that will run whenever, I guess, this thing gets destroyed. So connection disconnect. React will call your cleanup function each time before the effect runs again. So if we had it without this, it will run this as well right before running the next effect. So basically every re-render. Okay. And one final time when the component unmounts. Okay. So if we have this, it will run this code whenever it mounts and this code whenever it unmounts. Okay. Sure. Let's see what happens when the cleanup function is implemented. Zero documentary India says hi. Hello to you too. How are you doing? All right, so we have this, right? And this will basically disconnect. So it disconnected. When we reset, yeah, we've got this thing. We don't have anything here to kind of, redo it, but yeah, it basically ensured that before we connect again, we disconnect first. Great. This is the correct behavior in development. Excuse me, where we have, the first try and then second. By remounting a component, React verifies that navigating away and back would not break your code. Disconnecting and then connecting again is exactly what should happen. When you implement the cleanup well, there should be no user visible difference between running the effect once and running it, cleaning it up, and running it again, other than maybe extra delay. There's an extra connect disconnect call pair because React is probing your code for bugs in development. This is normal. Try not to make it go away. I mean, there's no visible thing to actually make it go away other than removing some extra component. In production, you would only see connecting printed once. Remounting component only happens in development. Okay, this is like saying it 30 times. You can turn off strict mode to opt out of the development behavior, but we recommend keeping it. This lets you finally find many bugs like the one above. I mean, it makes sense. So how to handle the effect firing twice in development? The answer is to implement a cleanup function. That's it. Okay, so don't use refs to prevent event from firing. Oh, look at that. A common pitfall for preventing effects firing twice in development is to use ref to prevent the effect from running more than once. For example, you could fix the above bug using a ref, a connection reference, bam, and if connection is current, do this. Oh, okay. But yeah, that was the thing. We created the connection here as a constant, right? We connected. And after this exits, in my opinion, this connection gets destroyed. Unless that specific library holds the actual connection somewhere. I am so confused. This is a weird example, right? Yeah, I don't know where that state will live afterwards because it just cleans it up. So when we return, oh, I guess it lives. Oh, I see. So this doesn't stop existing because we have it referenced in this cleanup function, and therefore it exists until the use effect calls the cleanup function, after which it gets actually destroyed. So this is kind of a weird hack where that dependency one between the other will actually keep the state alive to some extent. But if you were to have more stuff, like maybe besides connection, you had something else that you want to use, and it's not captured by this, arrow function here, it will get destroyed. So not the greatest example. At some point, you might want to have this, right? But it says, oh, because it's like, hey, if we have the connection, excuse me, do that, right? It will make it not appear connect, but it wouldn't actually fix the problem. Yeah, that's true. The connection would live, sure, to some extent. I don't know if useRef would actually make it live, but yeah, okay. So this makes so you only see connecting once in development, but it doesn't fix the bug. When the user navigates away, the connection still isn't closed, and when they navigate back, a new connection is created. As the user navigates across the app, the connections would keep piling up, the same as it would before the fix. Yeah, but I want to give this to chat again because that's some interesting question. Let's say that I have code, whatever, React code like this. Right? Great. Connection, create connection. What makes the connection live after we exit the use effect? My intuition tells me that the connection, whatever, the connection object lives because the cleanup function captures it. We'll just call it closure, right? What captures it in its context. What if we had some additional objects like the, let's call it DB. Will it persist between the use effect runs, or does it get garbage collected right after use effect finishes executing? CBN is asking, how do you get the returned value from the closure within use effect? You don't. You don't get anything back from it. So let's say we had, oops, stop, edit. I hate that. Let's say that I have the connection connect, but I also have the constant, let's say db is connection.getDB, right? We'll do something like that. And this way I expect that this db, the moment we exit out this function here, it will get cleaned up. As in, hey, this thing was never used, it gets cleaned up. And I'm just trying to make sure that that's what is actually happening, because normally you would want to kind of save that connection somewhere, right? Because they were suggesting, hey, don't use the ref, right? But in some way, something like that, you would want this connection to persist somewhere. Sure, you want to clean it up so you don't like repeat connecting to it. But still, in this case, they just wanted to close it the moment you leave the app. But with something like a database, maybe you want to keep that connection open wherever, wherever you are within the app. So intuition is correct. The connection object persists because it's captured in the cleanup function's closure. Here's what happens with object lifetimes. Object that persists. Connection lives until component amounts because the cleanup function holds a reference. And DB gets garbage collected immediately after use effect finish executing, right? So the DB here is eligible for GC, so basically no remaining reference. Well, connection will be just existing because it's waiting to be removed. So that's something they're not explaining here. And CPN says, why not return the whole connect object? I don't know, man. JS is everything. JS and everything related is just weird to me. It's just, high level language, and JS is quirky. I mean, the whole idea here with this use effect is that, you have separate you can imagine you have separate rendering process, right? That focuses purely on rendering. I'm gonna run this code of my component to generate what should be displayed on a screen, and then it gets displayed, right? That's one thing. And you want that code to be responsible only for the rendering, so it happens as fast as possible. Just render it, and that's it. And everything else, all the interactions, or connecting to something that might take extra time or whatever, that should happen outside of that rendering pipeline, right? You don't want to mix those two, because suddenly if your rendering waits on something, you're gonna get delayed, just as if you're making a game, right? You want to put stuff on the screen as fast as possible, and some long-running things you just want to keep somewhere in the background, maybe in a different thread or something. So you can kind of think of it that way. And yeah, that's why we run this separately. And there's nothing stopping you from, in this case, in our chat room, you could absolutely have this situation where you have this connection reference, use reference, right? There's nothing wrong with having this, and therefore they're just saying current is create connection. Where is it? What do we edit? Here, we say that connect, we can actually set this one here. Hey, connection reference current is this, and then we use the same thing to connect, right? But the important part is that, hey, when disconnecting, we need to also call the same one and disconnect it first. So we do use ref, and it works, right? We connected, we disconnected because we reloaded the component and connected. So yeah, right now this doesn't hold its own version of it, and there's no weird stuff. We just set this one outside of the scope, right? Now the chat room is responsible for just controlling that connection. It lives. Therefore, we don't have to return anything, right? So that's great. They're just saying that you still need to have that cleanup function, because the moment we move away from the chat room, we go into settings, we want to disconnect from chat first, so that that connection and stuff doesn't exist and live in the background for no reason. And we want to avoid situation, let's say create connection just creates a new object, right? It just starts a new connection. And whatever, maybe you have a situation where the old connection lives somewhere because you forgot to disconnect first. And that can cause problems. Maybe not in this super simplistic example, but if you have some library that keeps track of, in the background of the multiple connection or something, you're gonna start getting weird issues that will be hard to debug. So remember to clean up. And that's what they're trying to explain here. They're just not not that great about it. At least from the beginner perspective, I would think that it could be confusing. SPN says, except for just the XML HTTP request, that API is great. All right. Controlling non-React widgets. Sometimes you need to add UI widgets that aren't written in React. Set zoom level or whatever. Data close. Subscribing to event. Oh, return window, remove even listeners. Okay, so this is like from jQuery. Trigger animations, don't care. Fetching data. If your effect fetches something, the cleanup function should either abort the fetch or ignore its result. Interesting. Yeah. So we have our use effect. So looks like whenever the user ID changes, or whenever the thing got mounted for the first time, we basically want to start fetching something, right? We start a request. It might take a few seconds. It might take a few milliseconds, but it's usually, hundreds of milliseconds. That's like your average thing, right? And during that time, your component might re-render. You don't want to start yet another request every time you just change something. I mean, user ID won't be changing that often, but still. But you want to make it that, either you ignore it, make it like, all ignores false, and you started the fetching stuff, and you await fetch to do's, and only if it's not ignore, you set the to do's, right? So here we fetch the stuff, and this is executing after the fetching finished. And there might be a situation where by the time we got that data, the user ID already changed to something else because I know the user clicked a button. Maybe user ID is a bad idea here, but maybe they click on something else, right? And this data is outdated already. We are not caring about that. So we should ignore it, right? So that's one way. So that in the other use effect that triggered, the correct one will be, another fetch will happen. But even better would be to straight up, like they mentioned, abort the fetch. You can literally make the fetch abort. So the moment we change the data, we first abort the fetch. We are not awaiting it anymore. The browser will be like, never mind. And we can safely start another one so that we don't have 30 requests happening one after another, waiting for nothing. And CPN is, why do they declare a function within a scope just to call it immediately? What do you mean? Function like this one here? This is literally for that very reason. So let me think, just in case. Let's do this, and then start fetching, and then do that. Okay, so the answer is this async here. This is an asynchronous function, okay? So what is happening here is that whenever use effect runs, as in we just render the component first time, or maybe the user ID changed, right? The use effect will run. This code here, not the cleanup function, but this code will run. So what is happening here, notice that this is not a synchronous action. This is synchronous. There's no async here. Therefore, what is happening, we do, we set the ignore, and then we call start fetching. We're not awaiting, therefore we're not waiting until it finishes to register this. We're just deploying it. You know what? Run this thing. Just keep running it. It's fire and forget. So what this does, it's literally registering it, hey, in an event loop, add this code to run eventually. It won't run immediately. It will just run eventually. It just adds it to the queue of stuff to run. And after that, it just immediately proceeds here and, returns this thing to run whenever the cleanup is. Therefore, it can start going for another effect if something needs to run. Well, this is gonna complete whenever it completes, right? That's it. So that's like a fire and forget mechanism. All right, so you can't undo a network request that already happened, but your cleanup function should ensure that the fetch that's not relevant anymore does not keep affecting your application. If the user ID changes from Alice to Bob, cleanup ensures that Alice's response is ignored even if it arrives after Bob. Yeah, in development, you will see 2 fetches in the network tab. There's nothing wrong with that. Yep. It's the same thing. Production, there will be only 1 request. Repeat. Setting analytics, don't care. Not an effect, initializing the application. Some logic would only run once when application starts. You can put it outside of your component. Yep. Buying the product, yeah, that's just, shouldn't be a use effect. Just do it once from the button, handle click, and then fetch it. There we go. Putting it all together, I mean, sure. Okay, so we learned about use effect. We know how it works. I'll be right back, need to blow my nose. All right, I'm back. Okay, so we know the use effect, how it works. But now let's just look at this other thing, React query. What happens? 10 stack query React docs, because that was the second approach that was actually said by Chad. You know what? This would be even better to do than the use effect. So we have this whole 10 stack. Whatever that is, React, Vue, Angular, Solid, Svelte. Okay, I mean, this is 10 stack query. So I guess 10 stack query, formerly known as React query, is often described as the missing data fetching library for web applications. But in more technical terms, it makes fetching, catching, synchronizing, and updating server state in your web application a breeze. So it's okay, sure. Most core web frameworks do not come with an opinionated way of fetching or updating data in a holistic way. Because of this, developers end up building either meta frameworks which encapsulate strict opinions about data fetching, or they invent their own ways of fetching data. Exactly. We don't want to redo something if we don't have to, because often fetching, even though it sounds so simple, has just tons of edge cases, and you start building it up, and you end up having it, in a million places in your code in the first place, and then they all start growing, and there's just surprisingly a lot of edge cases for that. This usually means cobbling together component-based state and side effects, or using more general purpose state management libraries to store and provide asynchronous data throughout their apps. While most traditional state management libraries are great for working with client state, they are not so great at working with async or server state. This is because server state is totally different. For starters, server state is persisted remotely in a location you may not control alone, requires asynchronous APIs for fetching and updating, implies shared ownership, and can be changed by either people without your knowledge and can potentially become out of date if in your applications if you're not careful. Once you grasp the nature of service state in your application, even more challenges will arise as you go, for example, caching, possibly the hardest thing to do in programming, deduping multiple requests for the same data into a single request, right? Because you suddenly loaded few things that are supposed to read the same data. It isn't there yet because you just started application and they will all send the same query 3 times. And it's like, why? Updating out-of-date data in the background. Exactly. Knowing when data is out of date. Reflecting updates to data as quickly as possible. Performance optimizations like pagination and lazy loading data. Managing memory and garbage collection of server state. Memoizing query results with structural sharing. Yeah, there's just so much that goes into that it's like, huh, I haven't thought about that until you actually start building it. And it just becomes a big pain point. Because half of your work suddenly is not working on your application, you're working fiddling with fetching and trying to make it work nicer. If you're not overwhelmed by the list, then that must mean that you've probably solved all your server state problems already and deserve an award. However, if you are like the vast majority of people, you either have yet to tackle all or most of these challenges, and we're only scratching the surface. TanStack Query is hands down one of the best libraries. Wow, they're really touting whatever, promoting themselves. It works amazingly well out of the box with zero config to be customized. Oh wow, holy moly, that's bold. TanStack Query allows you to defeat and overcome the tricky challenges and hurdles. Okay, TanStack will likely help you remove many lines of complicated misunderstood code. Great. Make application more maintainable, have a direct impact on your end user, making it just faster, yeah. Potentially help you save on bandwidth, increase memory performance. Great. So enough talk, finally. Show me some code. In the example below, you can see the TanStack query is the most basic and simple form being used to fetch the GitHub stats for the TanStack query GitHub project itself. So what? So we import query client. CPN says, all I'm hearing is we love over-engineering stuff. It's not that over-engineering. It's just, in practice, even if you make smaller apps, the moment you have this whole component system is that often you need a situation where, let's give you a very simple example. Let's say that you make an app where user can log in, right? And something very simple. Maybe you don't use any clerk or whatever. You have a situation where, like when you're logged in somewhere on a website, when you're logged in, you see your avatar, the picture, right? And that picture needs to be displayed there, right? So you made a component that is called user avatar. And what it does is like, oh, let me check what the user is. If they're logged in, I'm gonna download their avatar and just plop it there, right? Great. But then suddenly, okay, you put it on somewhere on a top right side of the page where you would expect it, and it just displays it. Then you have a situation where you're in the settings page, right? And in the settings, you also have a part of, manage your account, here's your avatar, and edit it, whatever. You decide, you know what, I already have a component that can display it. I'm just gonna plop it here as well. And at some point, maybe you have on the left side somewhere, like, I know, some little chat app so that all the users that, I know, like in Slack, need to communicate, and you want to display your avatar everywhere there as well. Like in a conversation, right? It will have maybe You wrote something 10 times, there's 10 of your avatar. You want to keep reusing that. So I'm just going to slap that component everywhere. And you're suddenly going to the point where it's like, oh, you realize every time this component displays, it just downloads the avatar, right? Maybe the avatar is not anywhere in a CDN. Maybe you actually send a request to your server. And suddenly, if you have it 10 times over your page, you send 10 requests just for the same data every time. Well, you don't have to. It would be nice if they all coordinated, put that somewhere, and reused every time. And suddenly you have to manage where you keep that little bit of data. And because you have 30 other components that have the similar scenario, it's, another problem. And CBN says, I put those kinds of reusable data within a template tag. Within a template tag. Template tag? What do you mean by template tag? And I mean, the thing is that your JavaScript computes words should actually request, right? Because maybe you got it from the user and then, template HTML tag. Yeah, but the data might change depending on, the user, the spot where the user data is being held, right? You often in larger application, you have a situation where maybe this guy comes from Google account, this one from GitHub or something. You have different sources. You need to handle changing login method, all that stuff. It just gets complicated. So you have 10 things that use that particular part of state. You have 30 other components that also kind of share that data. And you quickly go to the point where, you know what? Maybe I don't want to refetch that data every time I refresh the page. Maybe I want something cached, maybe locally or something. It's just so many weird things and edge cases. And this is just an example of loading something that simple as just an avatar, right? That's one request. But if you have something more complex, some more complex data, might be a situation where maybe this component uses only this part of data that will be fetched, another component of something else, and it just explodes in complexity very, very, very quickly when you're making like a real larger application. So I agree with all of those. It's a big problem and it's a pain, real pain to manage yourself. Because, just like here, whatever it was when we saw in React, 1-2 lines to fetch something, right? No, it often becomes 200 lines to fetch something. Literally 200 lines of code to do it correctly, to just have that one request handled because it's special. And then every single one becomes special in some way. All right, so how does it work? So we have the query client provider, and use query. Okay, this is our hook. This is probably something that holds all the state or something. And this is something that we use to actually run queries against? Don't know. So in our app, we create our query client. Looks like it's outside component, so this lives forever, as long as the app lives. Then we have our app. And we wrap our app in our query client provider, and we attach that query client. Okay, so that's what's happening here. This lives forever, and this just injects that reference into our React app. So our React app is aware of it. Then we have an example component, right? So this is here. So our example has a use query that will basically provide query key. So this is, I guess, the unique key so that it knows that we're requesting that specific piece of information. We have a way to fetch that information. So, this is our normal fetch. This is the easy part. And the response is just JSON. And we are returning anything? What the hell? res.json. Where are we saving the state? That's the confusing part. Okay. Other than that, the use query gives us is pending so that we know if we're waiting for the data, info if we errored, and the actual data. Okay. And CPN says, I mean, yeah, I get your point, but I can use a map or something as a cache. By the way, template is a good example for, I give that example. Sure. I mean, you can use a map. You can solve all those problems. These are not inherently difficult problems in the beginning if you have a small app. But yeah, it just keeps escalating and it keeps escalating and it keeps escalating. So half of your, like you start with something simple and then you spend just way too much time just dealing with all this. It's like, come on, I have to update this again because I just use that component somewhere else. And it's just that constant distraction from what do you want to do? Oh, I need to do this. I just forgot about that. And it's just ugly. Okay, so we have the spending, error, and data, right? So if it's pending, we just render loading, right? If it's not pending anymore, because this, I believe, is using the state behind the scenes, therefore, whenever pending is changed, this will automatically re-render. So it's not pending anymore. It'll go here, checks, is it an error? Yeah, an error occurred. Otherwise, it will render our nice thing, right? It will get the name from the data, description, maybe subscribers count, all that stuff, right? So that's simple, all right? That's not a big deal. I like that we can have the actual request straight in our component, not living somewhere in some other place. So it's clear to see that, oh, this is requesting data from there. Okay, so that's simple enough. And I wonder, because we have the query key, I guess if we're gonna slap on 10 of those examples throughout the page, from what they said, I'm assuming that this will be fetched only once and reused everywhere. So we'll have only a single request and the same data will be reused everywhere. Okay, where'd it go? You talked me into it, so what's now? Consider taking the official 10 stack query course, holy moly. Or buying it for a whole team. Seriously, there's a course for this thing? At your own pace, thorough walkthrough guide. So we have installation, just whatever, 10 stack query, right? You can even do it from a CDN. Great. We have even a plugin for ESLint. Quick start. I just want to see what is it about to see if it's worth it. This code snippet very briefly illustrates 3 core concepts in React. Here they still call it React query. Queries, mutations, and query invalidation. If you're looking for a fully functional example, please have a look at our simple example. So whatever, we have the use query, use mutation, use query client, and client provider. Great. And then we have our get to-dos and post to-do from API, my API, whatever. Whatever that is. I guess maybe this is what actually fetches. Yeah, so this will be our fetch and this is our post. We just wrapped it into reusable chunks. So we create a client, whatever client is, right? And our app, again, we just wrap it in this. So that's the same pattern. You do it once per application. It's not a big deal, low cost. So then we have our to-dos, right? Query client is use query client. Oh, that's different. Why do you need the client? So then we have the actual queries. So query, use query. We have the key for to-dos and we just say, hey, this fetches the to-dos, right? So I guess it's going to automatically figure out what was fetched there and save it. And then we have mutations. Okay, so use mutation, post to-do. And on success, And oh, that's what we're doing. Okay, so basically, all right, so they actually make it where queries is for fetching data, like getting, right? And mutation is for when you're intending to actually change data. CPN says, problem is I don't have experience building big apps. Gotta fix that. And okay, I'm heading off. See you later. See you later. So with the mutation, we have the concept of actually sending, I intend to change some data, right? And this specific whatever HTTP request does the change. And then we can basically say, oh, if this succeeded, we want to basically refetch some data or maybe invalidate it, right? So on success, we do query client invalidate queries and we give the key. And what I assume it does, it marks this data as invalid. And depending on how we configured maybe this part or something else, how we configure the to-dos, maybe they will go and refetch themselves immediately. Or maybe they will be just marked as invalidated. So next time we actually try to read them from here, right? Maybe it's not immediately, maybe it's 3 seconds later, right? Only then we're going to actually refetch them. So yeah, we return list. These are the to-dos. So we render them. That's great for all the data. And then on click, we just say mutation mutate, and this is the data that we're inserting, right? So use mutation, and I guess it takes from the post to do what data actually to expect, right? Because use mutation and it just gives us the mutation object that we can commutate on. Okay, makes sense. And then we render the app. Great. So these three concepts make up most of the core functionality of React Query. The next sections of the documentation will go over each of these core concepts in great detail. Okay, great. So we have dev tools to actually do something. Wave your hands in the air, shout hooray, because React Query comes with dedicated dev tools. Wow. And we have floating mode. I guess it will show us everything. I mean, they don't show screenshots, so that kind of sucks. Videos, talks, comparison with what? We have Apollo client, React router, React query. React router has HTTP request support. What the hell? This is weird. TypeScript GraphQL, blah blah. Don't care. So important defaults. Out of the box, stack query is configured with aggressive but sane defaults. Sometimes these defaults can catch new users off guard or make learning the plugin difficult if unknown by the user. So query instances via useQuery or useInfiniteQuery by default considered cached data as stale. Okay, so always try to refetch. To change this behavior, you can configure your queries both globally and per query using the stale time option. Specify a longer stale time means queries will not refetch their data as often. So a query that has stale time set is considered fresh until stale time has elapsed. Okay, all right. So set stale time to, for example, 60 seconds times 2, so it'll be what, 2 minutes? To read it from the cache without triggering any kinds of refetches for 2 minutes or until the query is invalidated manually. Okay. Set to infinity to never trigger refetch until query is invalidated. Excuse me, invalidated manually, or set stale time to static to never trigger refetch, even if the query is invalidated manually. Okay. So that would be probably useful for a specific page, right? Just never update it until we remount the component or something. Stat queries are refetched automatically in the background when new instance of the query mount, exactly. The Windows is refocused and the network is reconnected. Interesting. So it actually handles network reconnections and stuff. Or when the Windows is refocused. Huh. So setting stale time is a recommended way to avoid excessive refetches, but you can also customize the points in time for refetches by setting options like refetch on mount, refetch on window focus, or refetch on reconnect. Queries can optionally be configured with a refetch interval to trigger refetches periodically, which is independent of the stale time setting. Query result can have no more active instances of use query. Use infinite query or query observers are labeled as inactive. They remain the cache. By default, inactive queries are garbage collect of 5 minutes. Queries that fail are silently retried 3 times. Okay. Exponential backup delay. Great. Query results by default are structurally shared to detect if data has actually changed. If not, and further reading. Okay, so we have that. So I'm actually tempted to use this thing and kind of learn it because it looks fun. And looks like we have a version for vue.js as well, right? What do they show it as an overview? I'm curious. Oh, they don't show code? Seriously? Quick start. Okay, this is vue.js. So import the same. Use query as use mutation. Use our client. So this is within the actual component, all right? And then we have query. Use query, pending as error, data and error, right? So we have additional is error here. That's fun. I guess because we can just do this reactive stuff in Vue.js, right? And we have exactly the same thing. Get to-dos wherever that is defined. If they forgot to import it here. And we have our mutation, which is the same thing, invalidate. So literally nothing changed. And on button click, we can mutate. That's fine. And basically we have the same thing. If it's pending, otherwise display this. You can assume by this point that is success is true. So otherwise, we are basically displaying the stuff, right? Okay, so that makes sense. That makes 100% sense. Okay, I kind of like it. Angular, solid, and svelte. Interesting, interesting. So let me just take a peek at queries, and we should probably finish with this thing and try to use it. So unique key for the query. So a query is a declarative dependency on asynchronous code of data that is tied to a unique key. A query can be used within promise-based method, including get and post method to fetch data from a server. If your method modifies data on the server, we can recommend using mutations instead. And to subscribe to a query in your components or custom hooks, call the use query hook with at least a unique key for the query and a function that returns a promise that resolves the data or throws an error. So how do you make that fetch to-do list? The unique key you provide is used internally for fetching, caching, and sharing queries throughout your application. The query result returned by useQuery contains all the information about the query that you'll need for templating and any other usage of the data. All right? Great. The result object contains a very few important states you'll need to be aware of to be productive. A query can only be in one of the following states at any given moment. Is pending, right? Status pending. So there's no data yet. Is error, the query encountered an error, or is success, the query was successful and data is available. Okay. So beyond those primary states, more information is available depending on the state of the query. Error, if the query is and is error state, the error is available via the error property. Okay. So where do we have is error? Oh, so we because initial examples weren't showing that is error available in React, but I guess it is. Okay, and then we have data. It's only when if success is state and is fetching. In any state, if the query is fetching at any time, including background refetching, is fetching would be true. Okay, so I guess we have is pending, which is like there's no data yet. We're pending, right? But we might already have the data that is considered stale. So when it does the refetching, we can still read it. But additionally, this is added refetching. So a success is already there because we have the data. It's just in the background is refetching, and the data might just change at some point. Okay, so that's good because that's another little problem. For most queries, it's usually sufficient to check for the is pending state, then is error state, and then finally assume that data is available and render that successful state, right? Bam, bam, bam. Familiar code. If booleans aren't your thing, you can always use the status state as well, right? And we have is pending, is error, otherwise. TypeScript will also narrow the type of data correctly if you've checked for pending and error before accessing it. Great. So we have the fetch status. In addition to the status field, you will also get additional fetch status property, the following. Fetching, the query is currently fetching. Pause, the query wanted to fetch, but it is paused. So read more about like network mode guide. And idle, the query is not doing anything at the moment. Yep. So why two different states? Background refetches and stale while revalidate logic may make all combinations for status and fetch status possible. For example, a query in success status will usually be in idle fetch status, but it could also be fetching in the background if a background refetch is happening. A query that mounts and has no data will usually be pending status and fetching status, but it could also be paused if there is no network connection, right? So it's pending, but there's no network connection. So the fetching is currently paused and will resume whenever the network is back, and then maybe eventually the whole thing will resolve to being okay. So I like that they also like throw in the network checks and everything. So keep in mind that a query can be pending state and all that stuff. All right, great. I understand that. I just want to see the query functions. Query function can be literally any function that returns a promise. The promise that is returned should either resolve the data or throw an error. Okay, all the following are very valid function configurations. So we have our query function. It's async. Excuse me. So basically awaits this and returns data, all right? So that's good. Or it could be this thing, which will, I guess, fetch to the by ID, and it will just return it anyway. So what's the point of this, right? Okay. Handling and throwing errors, just throw an error, right? And usage will fetch and other clients that do not throw by default. Ugh. Const response, await fetch. If it's okay, throw error, otherwise not. Okay. And we have variables. Look at that. Query keys are not just for uniquely identifying the data you are fetching, but are also conveniently passed into your query function as part of the query function context. While not always necessary, this makes it possible to extract your query functions if needed. Okay, so there are, like to-dos, status, and page. Oh, okay. So I guess because we skipped the query keys section, we can provide additional things, and like their unique combination is the actual key. So that's great. And we can also access the key and status page variables in your query function. So we have fetch to the list, and we accept the query key, right? So this is gonna be what, some kind of name parameter, and we can extract, let's say, status page and page, right? And then we do stuff. Great. Query function context. Okay, so we have like additional stuff. We don't care about that right now. Parallel queries, dependent queries, all that fun stuff. Okay, wow, there is a lot here. Holy moly. Okay, so let's just go through installation and just keep on moving. So we want to add 10 stack React query. Okay, sure. Which repo was this? This one. So yeah, let's throw it in. Where was I reading here? So basically, and now we just need to add it somewhere, right? Wait, this is just installation. Doesn't include any setup. Recommendations. It is recommended to also use our ES plugin query to help you catch bugs and inconsistencies. Yeah, we can throw that in. Why not? It'll be helpful. So we've got this one. We're gonna add this one, and in quick start we have the setup. So yeah, we will want this. Create a client, and then in our app we do stuff. So where do we define our app? Because right now we just call, we have our main page, and that's it. Our app is non-existent and at this very moment. So I guess we should kind of fix that, because here the app does absolutely nothing. I mean, it just displays the initial thing that we don't care about. So we could, in theory, just, oh wait, we have the other one, right? The index or main. Oh, there's our main, create root and all that stuff. So that's what maybe we can do, right? Strict mode, main page, or we just do app. How about we do that? We'll do app, and the main page will move into the app. So it will be what? Main page. Okay, that should be still okay. Pretty much the equivalent. We don't need any logos here, no state or stuff. So when looking at that, we just need the query client provider. So we can do that. This would be our main page, right? There we go. And we don't need to use state, but we need to have the stuff from here. So we'll be, let me just copy this whole thing and we'll pick what we need from it. So we just need a query client provider, right? And we're also gonna create our query client here. So it'll be just that. All right, now it's all happy. So we should have this set up. Everything is properly wrapped. Yeah, I guess that's it when it comes to initial setup, right? And then in our to-dos or whatnot, we'll be using the use query, and that's where we're gonna be holding the state. So in our very specific app, our main page so far was responsible to get data from the server, right? I mean, it wasn't getting data from the server yet, but we have a design where this holds the data. So I guess this is where we could throw in that whole fetching logic. So let's do that. We're gonna import it. I don't think we need those two. What we need is use query client, mutation, and query. Mutation we will need for adding a new habit. So let's just have this here. And what we're gonna do, we need to know that within our to-do, we need to have our client, and then we can run the query and define some kind of mutation. So let's actually do that. Exactly that. So right now we have, this is just for the dialog to show. We don't care about it. We can have that later. First, let's, or do we want to? Because we want to hold some kind of state. I don't know what a good way in React is to do stuff yet. As in, should I structure this one thing after another in some kind of logical chunks, or should I segregate it? Oh, maybe all the state first, all the other stuff later. I'll probably segregate it like, maybe this thing is for dialogue and habit adding, right? That'll be one thing. This one will be habit data or whatever input. Just call it data. So we're gonna do here. This is like beyond everything. It's just overall query client, and we could do constant query. So let's not call it query. Let's call it habits query. Okay. Use a query, and this will be habits. That will be our key, the only key, because we have just one source. And here, instead of doing get to do's, we're actually going to put in the fetching logic. Wasn't there like a basic example in overview here where we had some kind of fetching? There we go. We had this thing. I know it doesn't handle errors, but maybe by just not having anything is already gonna handle errors. So what we're gonna do is fetch, and we'll need to get this eventually from some kind of API, but I mean config. But for now, this is just localhost 88. Come on. Let's copy it, and we'll just throw it in here. And it's going to be API habits. There we go. Great. So this should fetch all the habits, take them out of JSON, and that returns it as a promise, because that's what fetch does, and that should be it, right? I hope this thing will be able to handle it. Okay. And then that's our query. And we close the whole thing and close the whole thing. And what is it complaining about? Parsing error, unexpected token. So our fetch, right, open, close, open, close. We have some random comma, and that's probably the problem. And now it's unhappy because we're not using it. Okay, so that's good. We're all good here. So that works. So yeah, that should fetch our habit data and just keep reusing it or something. I hope it shouldn't be like re-requesting it every time. Maybe in our function, instead of just doing that, let's do console log fetching habits. Right? We'll know exactly when we are refetching while we're learning the library. So that will be the data. So that means in theory, I can comment this out. That's from server or whatever. And mutations, we're gonna move it somewhere up there. So that's dialog and habit adding. So this is where we would have our mutations. So it'll be habit add addition mutation. I don't know, it's weird, but we can I don't know how to name it yet. Is mutation, and this will be, a function again needs to be something that takes in variables. So in this case, it will be the habit name, right? Habit name. That's the only thing that's gonna take in. I guess, and what it's gonna do, it's gonna be some posts, right? So let's do console log, and we'll just do posting new habit, and we can do fetch, and Then we have, how do we switch it, the normal one, into into a post? I don't remember that part. I mean, this will be pretty much the same. We want to do this, the same, whatever, but request init. The hell? Totally forgot. I use Axios for most of the time. How do I send a post request via web API fetch function? Okay, all right, I did that, right? And exactly, we need the, okay, let's just copy paste it, and that should be it. So fetch this. And we're gonna specify that we are doing method post headers. We need to specify application JSON because that's what our Dart server expects if we want to actually extract the JSON response. And body will be very simple. Name will be literally the habit name. Nothing else in there. So kind of overkill for a JSON, but why not? It will expand over time, I guess. So that will be our fetch. And on success, we need to invalidate our habits, because at that point we should refetch them. Yeah, that's it. And we need to add an indentation. Wait a moment. This went here. This was in here. This closes that one. So this closes that. This closes that. That is for this thing. So we need to, there we go. Well, this is again for this. Oh. There we go. Now it looks good. Why do I have 4 spaces for indent? It's kind of much, but oh well. So we've got that part. And other than that, oh, this is how we calculate our habits, right? So now we have habits query, but we're not extracting data from it. We shouldn't be doing that, right? We should be able to just straight up extract it. Like is pending and error and data, maybe is error or something like that. So we should be able to extract things from here. Do we have any other suggestions? Error update add filer. Oh, we have a lot of stuff. So in my case, I would want is error, something like that. Let's kind of sort it. There we go. Great. So now it's complaining because we're not using any of that, but oh well. So here we have basically, okay, so our habits, we are calculating that. So we should use our data. But the thing is that it can be empty, it can be literally empty. So we want to handle a situation where we can't map over it, right? Therefore, if we can map over it, we just return an empty map and that's it. I mean, empty list. So this way we can handle a situation where there's, no data. And because we have habits, we can kind of random them out. Otherwise it'll be empty list and handle new habit. Oh, so this is a situation where again, we're doing, what do you call it? When we want to add new habit, we're checking if it's possible. So right now we have this check where we check for existing data. This will eventually go to the server when it tries to do stuff. But for now, I guess we can just make it work here. So we have the habits, and we should use habits instead of the overall thing. It should be a map where we're mapping, we have name and entries. So this might be easier to use habits, find index where this works, right? And this will be pushing. Sure, it won't work, so it'll be to do use mutation, right? Because we will need to update it. We just don't have a server actually having that functionality yet, so that's that. And the rest, it's all good. We just need to handle the situation where we're still pending, right? So is pending, we need to read that and display just different stuff depending on what's going on. So here our main toolbar, that needs to, let's say for now, stay in there, right? We have this and that. I mean, we can't really do anything unless we're done from pending. So maybe let's do something like that. If it's pending, then we're just gonna display, I don't know, h1 loading habits. Okay, there we go. Then if it's not pending anymore, if it's error, we're gonna say failed to load habits. And then if everything is fine, so let's do not is pending and not is error. Let's actually add the error message below that. Why not? We'll see what happens. Why doesn't it like it? Oh, one parent element, of course. So let's do it this way. We're gonna do this whole funny little fragment here. And that should help us finish that part. There we go. So we've got our error state here. And if it's not pending and if it's not error, then we can actually do this thing, which will be, again, open of parentheses, start a fragment, and close the fragment here. Oops. Okay, I mean, that looks okay. Nothing crazy here. So possibly this should work already. I mean, we have our API running. No, we don't. So we can start it. And in theory, it's working. So when we go here and start our dev server, well, let's see if we can get to it, wherever that was. Here. Refresh. We don't see anything. Great. So we have fetching habits. Query data cannot be undefined. Please make sure to return a value other than undefined from your query function. Really? We're literally returning undefined? What happened to network? We did 404 not found. API habits. Should be API habit. Yep. So we already see that our fetch fails to return correct errors, right? That's the first problem. So besides just fixing the API, we can also handle the errors. And we had something here, right? So basically, we need to check if the response is okay or not. So, yep, let's do that. So we'll make sure that this is async. And wait, not here. But this is async. And therefore we do response is await this thing. All right. And after we wait, so if response is okay, what the hell? No, just okay. Right. Why isn't this happy? It just says this is response any. We'll see. Oh, because we have then do this. Ah. So this is that. If the response is okay, then we're gonna return response.json, right? And that's that. Otherwise, we should probably throw in your error. We can literally do HTTP error when fetching habits. And response, what is it suggesting? Status. Sure. You don't care about the actual error. There we go. And that should be it for this thing, right? Hopefully it's gonna work now. This is the complaining, but oh well. Whoa, that is one large loading habit. We still get nothing? No, 200, okay. Okay, so that worked. Let me refresh that again. It got it the third time, apparently. And then disappears again. We got them here. Oh, because we have created at a name and nothing else. And probably that's the problem here, right? So is error is not a function, that's one thing. Fetching habits, fetching. Oh, reason. Course headers, of course. Forgot about that part. But we'll fix it in a second. So let's just make sure that we have the error handling proper here. So in our React is error. How are we treating it as a function? Where is that coming from? Uncode type error. Is error is not a function. Main page 183 apparently. 183. So this is treating it as a function? That's confusing. What does this say about it? It's just a boolean. Exactly. I'm not running it. Oh, because this I need and. There we go. That's going to fix it and probably display a proper error, right? It'll be bam, 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 an error. That's as you forgot ampersand. Yes. Just looked at it and figured it out. Yep. Okay, so we still don't have error displayed, but oh well, objects are not valid as React child. Okay, so we just can't display the error here. So fail to load habits and that'll be good enough. All right, that's good enough. Let's wait it for to bounce a few times. Make sure that we see error. There we go. And now let's deal with the thing I absolutely hate, which is cores. So what do we have here? Now SurrealDB, we just have our middlewares and whatnot. So we basically need to, we need to handle options. Then we have some kind of, we're using the Dart frog, GitHub, right? Let's go to the documentation and they should have something about cores here. How to add the proper cross-origin resource sharing. There we go. So cross-origin resource sharings or cores is a common thing that needs to be handled by backend servers. This guide shows how the handling of cores can be done in Dart frog project. Great. Whoops. Shelf already has a package in this ecosystem that handles cores. Since Dartfrog is built on top of Shelf, we can use it in Dartfrog as well. First, add Shelf course headers to your project. Okay, that makes sense. This will, answer to all the option requests and whatnot. So Shelf course headers. Great. That's good. Then to allow cores and routes, the following middleware can be created. So we want all the API stuff, basically accepted. So we create yet another middleware where we have our request logger, then from shelf middleware, shelf course headers, blah, blah, blah. So we could throw that in the other one, right? So let's just run this. Should be relatively simple. There we go. So this is our middleware for everything API related. We have this thingy. It's just not in use right now. And then we're gonna throw it in here. Sure. So instead of doing this, return handler, use this and use this. And allow control origin from anywhere. This is a no security app. I really don't care about that. And we can have more full example, but this might be actually enough. I assume it allows all the methods already. So let's start the app and see what happens. Doesn't complain. And refetching, okay, something worked. Can access property map on data habits as it's undefined. Oh, really? Network habits. I mean, we got them, right? It's funny because previously we kind of got them as well from time to time. It's like, oh, here we actually received data. So what is undefined about it? Because we just got it. Unless something else. So let's clear all this and restart to see what's going on. So this is habits can't access property map as it's undefined. So this would be 145. 145. So this is this thing here. Does it really try to call map on this? Oh, because we probably don't have habits on that anymore. It's just that. We just map over them. And entries will be habit.history. Can we actually split like this? No. Can we do this? Yes. Only sort if it exists. Otherwise, it will be just empty list, all right, of entries, because we might not just get anything. Oh, there we go. I think it worked. Refresh and bam, we saw the loading for a split second and we instantly get our habits. Okay, this is good. This is very good. Antara says, did you vibe coded it first? What you're asking about, what did I vibe code? In this app, literally nothing's vibe coded. All right, so we've got this part. All right. So we are able to retrieve the habits. Now will be the part to basically make the server receive updates to them. Let's see if we can do it quickly. If not, we'll need to finish for today. We haven't even touched the database, huh? So in our API, we have basically a situation where we have the get. We would need to add for, post, right? And that will be await on post habit and context. And that's literally it. So we have the habit getting. We'll need to do on post habit. What was the type of this? Request context. Let's just do this part. There we go. So we have something to receive the habits. But right now we have a list of habits right here, created every time we send a response. So maybe for now, what we can do is, let's actually comment that out as well. Maybe what we can do for now is hold all the habits right here and just see what happens, right? We'll have them here, and therefore we should be able to add to them because final isn't const, therefore we should be able to still expand the list. So on post habit, we'll need to basically extract info. So let's say let body or whatever is context dot, do we have dot request dot body, right? But there was something about it automatically extracting JSON for us, right? As long as we receive it. Wasn't there something like that? Because we had the test injection routes, request context, body. There we go. Can access the body here. Right, there we go. We got the body. And JSON. When context type is application JSON, you can use context request JSON to read the contents of the as map string dynamic. Okay. All right. So we can basically request JSON. And there's just curious. Now this is all copy pasted from docs / hand coded. Few questions asked to AI to save time, and that's it. All right, so this will be our body, and this should be a map of. Wait, we need to await it. Request.json. Yeah, we got a context request JSON. It's supposed to be map of string dynamic. Not just dynamic. I guess containing the body text parsed as JSON object. This object could be anything that can be represented by JSON. So it could be map, it could be list, could be string, could be anything. So in our case, we know that this should be should be, what do you call it? Should be an object with stuff. So I guess I can do if body dot is object, right? Then we can do parser doesn't map, so I guess this will be our final, and this will be, what is it? Map. Oh no, it's not just an object, it's a map, right? Of string to dynamic. So I guess I should check for that. We're gonna do body as map string dynamic. And I'm doing that to avoid the error, right? Unless I could just straight up assume everything and, oh, there's an error, I'm gonna do stuff, just throw it. Maybe that's gonna be a little bit more like easier approach. Sure, let's do that. Try. There we go. We'll wrap everything in a try catch. And if we have catch, we just straight up return response dot sure, JSON. Then we have like a response that's just text at some point. Responses. Oh, you just do response with status code. So we'll just do response with 400 for now. Status code 400. And that's it. Bad request. It's your fault. So we have our thing here. So we can basically say as map of string to dynamic. There we go. And now we can basically say final habit name is the body name as string. And that's it. And CPN says response of bytes is just text, right? I think response bytes will be what we want to put in some kind of binary in there, as in not even text. We just have an array of bytes and we just shove it in there. So probably something like image or whatnot. I could probably just do here and we have body as string, yeah. And we say it's your fault. Okay, there we go. We've got a nice response from the server. Bam. And this is unnecessary cast. Wait, what? Try removing the cast. It's unnecessary because I'm not using map? Oh wait, because I'm doing this whole thing. There we go. So we have got our habit name. Beautiful. And therefore we can add a new habit. So for now, let's just throw it in there and we're gonna do checks if it exists later. So let's do habits, add, right? And we need to throw in a new habit. So we're gonna do habit and create it now. It will be daytime now. And the name will be habit name. There we go. That should add it there. And that's literally it. We've got this. Do we need to put in parentheses or something? Yep. And when it all goes well, we need to still return response Status code. And what the hell was it 204 created or something? HTTP status codes. So we've got normal. 201 was created. 204 was no content. So let's do 204 no content because we're not returning anything. Because the creation, our frontend won't do anything with created data. It will just refresh all the data. So yeah, there you go. That in theory should work. So just in case it didn't reload correctly, we're gonna reload it. And can I add habit? Bam. Can't access property push. Habits.habits is undefined. Oh, we didn't run the mutation on our React side yet. CPN says in Go, the line between string and bytes is blurry. Okay. I mean, yeah, because in theory, you know, a string is a list of bytes. But, you know, the only difference with string is that it supports, you know, in theory, all the fun little characters like in UTF where something can be more than one character, right? Therefore, a character can take up more than 1 byte. CPN says, nah, 201 is our property here. If I would return 201, and normally it would be expected that I'm going to return the created object, as in I'm going to return the actual habit. The 204 is still acknowledgement that it's okay, but also says that there's no content returned, so don't bother extracting it. And Tess says, do you serve React with Dart web server? No, I'm not doing that. I'm just running dev server. In deployment, I wouldn't even serve it from the server because I would just put it on CDN so it's faster in the first place. Don't know if I'm gonna deploy this app because it's just one user. So it'll be for everyone to see. Unless I would just put it behind a, I don't know, Cloudflare block or something, like login screen. Then sure. SPN says it means new data is added to the DB, right? In my case, yeah. I mean, something like no content. There's no content to send for this request, but the headers are useful. The user agent may update its cached headers for the resource of the new ones, right? Well, 2.1 is succeeded. A new resource was created as a result. This is typically the response sent after post request or sampled request. I think it still expects. So we have the post request, right? Successful user creation response will look like this. 2.1 created, and we provide the created user, right? So that's that. What's the example of 204 no content? It will be for delete or maybe to update, right? Sure. In my case, I just want to specify that I'm not returning any data because I don't want to bother serializing that, whatever. I mean, in theory, I have this serialization here. JSON serializable, whatever. I can't pronounce things now. But whatever. It's a temporary little endpoint. Don't care that much. Hey, it's better than sending a GET request to create something, right? We were going over to React to figure out how to make the mutation. Because right now we're trying to add stuff to our local habits, which won't make sense. So we should be able to do habit addition mutation, mutate. And that would be what? We just need to give it the variables, which is void for some reason. That shouldn't be the case. How did they show it working? Where do I have it? I have it probably here. Synchronizing. Nope, nope, nope. It was the tan stack. So when they did the mutation, it was in quick start. Mutation, use mutation. And they had on success and post to do. So mutate, and they just provide the information, just like that, as an object. Okay. So I assume the post to do, because we don't have it anywhere around here. Oh no, this is probably like a large one, right? Whatever just opened. Da, 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 da. Source, we just have index here and that's it, really? Never mind. Let's see. Because I wonder if our mutation just needs to, if it's fine, because where do we register it? Mutation here. Because we specified that this basically takes in habit name. But something tells me we need to specify that we take in an object with a name habit name, and that will work a little bit better. So we can go in and specify habit name is habit data dot name. Okay. And that in theory should take care of the whole mutation. Do we need anything else other than call mutate? Let's see. Mutate, and that's it. Nothing else. And I saw that we had mutate like this or mutate async. This is not async. This is just gonna block stuff for a second. So let's try that, I guess. Does it return anything? Mutate, and no, it doesn't seem to return anything. How about habit mutation? Does that return? Use mutation results. Because something tells me in theory we could just display stuff. Error is pending is error, so we have all that here. So in theory, let's just first check if it works. Right? Posting new habits, fetching habits. And this data here didn't update. We refresh. I mean, we have the new We add a new habit. Add. Oh, okay, so it shows up, right? So that's great. And it shows up down there. Great. So that works. And when we refresh, it takes it from the server, so it's all in here. So that's good. But now, I mean, it happens so fast that it doesn't matter. But in theory, in our React, we could actually display the addition process. So instead of just having habit mutation, we could kind of extract stuff from it. So we could do add habit, okay? And then we would have, I mean, mutate as add habit, right? Was like that? How on earth do I extract it? Is pending. pending is already been declared. Oh, is addition pending? Oh, we need to do all this stuff. So add habit. There we go. And we would do also other stuff. So maybe instead of that, we actually leave off the way it was. We just name it a little bit better. Undo, whatever. Habit addition mutated. So it'll be mutate, whatever. Habit mutation. How about that? We're gonna do that. And we mutate it here while we should pass it on into the habit dialog, I guess. That's what it is. Because now when you think about it, we don't need to handle the habit addition on this end. We can just straight up pass in mutation in here. Huh. So let's do habit mutation is this, okay? And habit can take care of itself from now on. So we're gonna go to new habit dialog. When we have had a new habit click, on success will be on new entry. That's what we're expecting. Now will be habit mutation. Okay, so what we can do is straight up have this code run in here. Bam, just mutated, right? And habit data will be just habit name. There we go. We don't need this anymore. The only thing is we need to kind of check if it was success afterwards. And because this is synchronous, I should be able to do habit mutation dot is error. If it is error, we just set as error. Otherwise, we're gonna do, what was it? On close. Let's call it on close. Because we want to close this thing. And I guess that's it. Suddenly we don't need is set new habit dialog shown or any true false. Find indexes, nothing here. Bam. This doesn't have to be passed here anymore. Because this will magically update itself here. Great. So now we have this implemented. The only thing left is to actually check if we have a habit with the same name defined. I mean, after we check if it still works. Okay, that's good. Add habit, ABC123, add, and there we go. It updated itself. Beautiful. And refetched the habits. So the thing that I wanted just to mention is that, we display all this stuff like title bar and window body and everything in here. But what we could do now is that whenever we click submit, we want to do few very important things, because just for the sake of testing in our server, when we have our, not this habit, right? Whenever we post a habit, before we send a response, can we have something like sleep, for example, 2000 milliseconds? What is expecting? Duration. Oh, duration of seconds 1 or like 2 seconds. No, it doesn't like that. from? No. There we go. 2. We'll just wait for 2 seconds, right? Use const to the constructor to improve performance. Great. There we go. Such big performance improvement. Okay. So now, when we will go here, refresh the app. I mean, we don't have to. Add a new habit. Add. We're waiting. Oh, now it added. It just took 2 seconds. But notice that our dialog box disappeared instantly, which means that, oh, we already finished. That was weird. Shouldn't like wait? Unless this mutate, we actually need to make it async and actually force ourselves to wait for it. Because maybe mutate just runs with it. Wait. Let's see what happens now. We add a new habit. Add. No. They're already fetching habits. What the hell? Is that sleep not working? Network. Do we have an information? Habit took 2 seconds. 2 seconds. So it takes 2 seconds, okay? Even have a little slow server response, right? So that part actually works. So the Dart part works. Our part doesn't. For some reason, when we handle new habit click, things happen automatically already. Why is that? So let's do console log. And let's do clicked. Whatever. Saving new habit. And then let's do console log saved new habit. I want to see what happens when, because this is very weird behavior. Refresh. Console. Click. Right? There we go. Add. It like instantly saved in, oh, because what? I don't know why this is, unless I think I know what's going on. I think this tries to return immediately the mutate async, right? But something tells me this is trying to be smart enough and just mutate, like, run the mutation, and we just need to wait for the pending state for whenever it finished it, and only then it should do stuff, which I don't like personally. Is there something like habit mutation wait or something, or use state, use effect on that? Mutation dot And now nothing works. Hmm. Because when we make it normal, refresh, run again. So saving new habits, save new habit instantly. Fetching habits, things. I guess it already did, but this is very confusing. Let me do something like this. Our server here, we're gonna make it that we have only one thing. Let's restart the server. Let's go here, refresh our app, and we have one thing. I want to see it with my own eyes. See, nothing, and then it shows up. So this wait time is okay. It's just, yeah, I guess the thing is that okay, so what is happening here in our dialog, whenever we click save, we initiate the mutation and it just finishes very quickly, right? It finished that, I initiated mutation. Here I'm checking if it's error. It's not error yet. What is happening is it's pending, but it hasn't errored yet. So I would need to make it in some way that to have some kind of use effect, something like use effect, all right? And what we want to do is we want to kind of, first of all, instead of having this habit mutation here, let's make it like extract some of those values from the habit mutation, which will be, let's call it save habit, which will be the mutate. And this will be from the habit mutation. Okay, so we're going to extract the mutate, and then will be is saving pending, which will be the is pending, and did save fail, which will be the is error. Okay, and wait, it's the other way around? I'm getting so confused. Mutate should be save habit. Is pending should become is saving. Did save fail should become this. And they're just unused. That's it. So here, instead of mutate, we'll just call save habit. Okay. We don't do any of that. No closing of the window. We just initiate the saving. So now the use effect will be something where we are observing the is saving pending and did save fail. And only if is saving pending. So if it's not pending anymore and the save failed, we show the error. Otherwise, else if it's not saving but it's not error, we close. That in theory should work. On close. Sure, on close is a function. I'll be back in 3 minutes. Give me a moment. Alrighty, I'm back. Sorry about that. And CPN is saying, does it catch the error there? Oh boy, I have a lot of questions. We'll get there. We're gonna finish that part of code and finish it off. I don't like this thing. I mean, it's this thing that's gonna be set once, but oh well. Oh well. I guess it's a prop, so React really wants it. The thing is that when we run this will run the first time we mount the component, therefore we'll instantly just turn it off. It will try at least, because it's not pending and save didn't fail. So we need some additional value that would be basically like, oh, did we ever start doing stuff? And that's the thing. So in our main page, we have the way to habit mutation. We defined it here. And this is because, I mean, does it really have to be here in the first place? It doesn't even have to be here. Could be here, but doesn't have to. And on success, we're basically invalidate the query habits. So let's imagine that this needs to be here for some reason, okay? Let's just imagine this needs to be here for some reason. How do I react to this thing, just not the first moment? How do I make it, somewhat smart? So here we know what habit mutation is. What other habit mutation dot context data error failure count is idle pending success mutate. So here's status and variables, and that's pretty much it. How do we detect that we at least run it once? Failure count, reason, data, context. I mean, it doesn't sound right, to be honest. Okay, this is a non-trivial thing. Oh, or we can just make it really simple. Yeah, so we have used ref. Okay, so let's do another reference. We'll just throw it in here, right in front of this. So it'll be constant. Is saving initiated, right? And we're gonna do use ref, and it'll be false. Okay, we just say it's not initiated yet. And when we start saving, we're gonna say this dot current is true, but we just initiated saving and we saved the habit. Then use effect is basically if is saving initiated, then we do all this stuff. Or like if it's not initiated, we just ignore it. And that's it. There's nothing else to clean up. Just react to it here. And after is error, we do is saving initiated is false. We just clean up, right? The current, because we have accessed the previous value or something. That's why the current everywhere. And the same thing here. We can probably just do this at the end. And that should be it. Hopefully that's gonna work. The only thing is that we want to display the fact that, this whole thing I'm doing so that I can use is pending and is error. So basically the button here, we need to display it like if not is pending, or like is saving pending. Only then we display the close button. Because if we clicked add new thing, we don't want to do it there. So Taras is asking, why do you need to know if you run it once? So this whole use effect React calls whenever you first display the component. And because by default, the saving process is not pending because we're not saving anything initially, right? So it's false. And the saving didn't fail yet, also false. You know, it will be basically like, oh, we just finished saving and it's gonna close the dialog that I just displayed. So I just want to prevent it from that happening. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So now we hide the button to close the dialog whenever we start a saving process. And then additionally, all the contents that we have here, which is, you know, like, oh, this and that, all the entries. I also want to hide them. So if is pending, or like if it's not pending and not, wait, is saving pending and is, it's not, is error, whatever, saving error, did save fail. So if it's not that, we're gonna display this HTML thing here. Okay. And that's that. Otherwise, if it's still saving pending, we can basically display something like something like a span that will say saving or whatever, saving new habit. All right. So it's gonna be if it's pending. So lastly, if it's not, is saving pending and is error. Then we're gonna do, but then we're not doing anything. We're not showing it because then it's gonna automatically call and reset everything and show error message. Okay. All right. Maybe this is gonna work. And Taras says maybe save success, or maybe, you know, not started, saving failed, success. It's JavaScript, there are no enums. So that's it. Just, you know, I have the what is it? Is error for state, which conflicts, and that's, I guess, the only reason. But whatever, it's fine. I guess, I don't know, this persists. I guess this persists. So in theory, I don't need that. In theory. But let's just see if the current thing even works. We reset, add new habit, 1, 2, 3. Add. Okay. Didn't work. It just didn't work. What the heck? So we save the habit. How about actually see, like, on success? It should invalidate queries. It'll be console log habit mutation succeeded. Maybe that's the problem. It just assumes that it already succeeded somehow. No, it's save new habit, mutation succeeded. But look at that. The habit mutation succeeded way ahead of anything. So it's like not even waiting for it. It says you can have pretend enum in JS. Maybe you could make something up with classes, but there's no types, so have a string, and that's it. Okay, so somehow this runs way earlier than it should. And that's the problem. So is it because of this or something? Because fetch is supposed to return a promise. Unless we can make the whole thing async and it's gonna magically start working. I have this, and we can say if let's actually save that value, right? Because maybe it was just maybe mutation doesn't even return, like I mean await any return, but that would be very strange. Response is await the fetch. So if response is okay, then we're gonna just return. Otherwise, throw whatever. Where were we throwing something already? There we go. Error saving habits. And that's it. What is it going to behave like right now? Two children of same key, 1 to 3. Oh yeah, because I have the 1 to 3 minute task. Add. And now habit mutation succeeded. Look at that. That's all it that's what that's what was wrong. And therefore it's not fetching habits. Okay, so so never ever trust the evil web-based fetch, because it's not being handled properly. It's not being awaited. Okay. So it did add it, but it didn't close it. So what, I mean, when I look at the logs, where did it go? So it's still save new habit instantly, posting new habit, and then succeeds, and that ends it. So it looks like our use effect didn't work. And it says even ends would work for enums. Yeah, but what are we trying to do with that? What do we want enums in here? I don't understand. All right, so his mutation, blah blah blah. Not this one. This code. So in our new habit, this is fine. But what is going on with our effect? We set it to true. It shouldn't do anything. Pending should trigger. Let's debug that thing. A bunch of console logs. Whatever. Let's just throw in an emoji or something, or just effect. There we go. This will be initiated. We're gonna have start. How about that? So initiated as in saving is initiated, right? And then we had error or success. And then we have setting to false. Let's see what happens. I'm gonna even restart the whole thing. Bam. So look at that. It started twice already, which is good, but it didn't pass through because it didn't do anything. Add habit. Re-render. Again, it just started the effect. Nothing changed. Add. Setting to false. Already. Then habit mutation succeeded. I guess this ran earlier and we still didn't close the window. What am I missing? I'm calling on close. So wait, did we get success or not? Ah, we didn't get success at all. So we had just something wrong. So if it's not, if pending is not saving, pending, and did save fail. Oh, right. I'm running this whatever, whenever. That's why. Bam. Bam. There we go. That should fix the problem. And now it worked. Perfect. Okay. Test says combine multiple state booleans into single state enum. I could, but they all represent something else. I mean, in theory, I could go with, what is it? I could extract literally, it was somewhere here, the definition of it. Habit mutation, right? I can use habit mutation status, which is error, idle, or idle, pending, error, or success. These are the 4 states. I can already compare it. I can extract it and have as one value. Idle, initial status prior to the mutation function executing. That's still, it starts as that, which is not a big deal, but then if the mutation attempt was successful, the status of the mutation is okay. But the whole component will live after I add once. If I'll start adding another one, I can't rely on idle anymore. I still need that separate thing that something was initiated. And then pending, error, success. All I need is pending and error, those 2 enums, and those 2 booleans, and it's good enough. Yep. And did I just add this line here? Yep. There we go. So yeah, this thing works. I can remove all the ugly little comments, like this thing and that thing. This works, saving works properly. All right, we've got saving working. Yep. No more posting new habit. We don't need that thing. And fetching habits, we don't need that either because it refetches it itself. And we don't even need to specify that stale data is every 5 minutes or something. I don't care about that yet, but this gives us function that will automatically refetch stuff maybe every 5 minutes or whatever. Don't care at this point. Yep. Okay, so this is working, right? New habit. Finish streams. Earlier. Saving new habit. And it's done, right? Worked the way it's supposed to. Let's ignore that. That's because we have those two, because we're not checking yet. We'll do that next stream, where in our habits, first of all, we don't need the, where did it go? We don't need the sleep anymore. Okay. And now the only thing is that on post habit, we just need to add the to do, which will be check if habit with same name exists first. But the thing is that we won't be doing that here anymore, because next stream, what we're going to do is we are going to actually start fetching and saving this data to the database. And on the database, we'll be able to put in an index that ensures that the names of habits are unique. And therefore, when we try to save it, it'll prevent us in the first place. And that's it. It'll be that simple. So this code won't even care about that. So yeah, next stream, we're going to add the schema to SurrealDB to hold the habits. Adding fetching, adding, and possibly updating. And from there, we'll start the process of being able to actually register that, hey, I completed the habit today, right? So we're going to start adding that logic and how to store that history, because there are multiple approaches on how to store that data and how it will affect fetching it. And yeah, that'll be tomorrow. So for now, I'm done. This took a little bit longer than I expected. So thank you everyone for watching. Thank you for participating. Thank you for helping out. And I'll see you tomorrow. Same time, 9:15, 9 maybe. I'll see if I'll make it like 15 minutes earlier every day. Don't know. But again, thank you for watching and see you tomorrow.